Welcome back to Two Gals and a Glass Half Full. We are so excited you're here, and we hope you will hit the subscribe button below to continue to stay up to date on all the Two Gals information.
Absolutely.
So we are in the month of December. I had to think there for a second. Oh my goodness. And we're talking about goal setting. And last week we talked about writing your 50 goals. This week we're going to talk about where do you go from there. But before we get started, Dr. Jess, what is in your glass?
I'm looking on water. So I'm kind of down to the very bottom of this bottle, and that was my goal for today, was to make sure I finish this more than once. And I'm almost there, so wish me luck. So Dr. Bobbie, what's in your glass?
I'm on the same. I'm on some nice ice water.
So this week what we're talking about is we have these categories that we had asked you last week to write down, just like if there was nothing standing in your way, what would be your goals in these categories of recreation, spiritual goals, health, personal growth, family and relationships, financial, and career. And so if nothing was in your way, big picture, what would, like no money got in the way, what would you really want out of life in those categories? And so knowing that that's not realistic, but it does help you get to that understanding of where you would like to go. Mm-hmm. And so what we're going to talk about today is how to use that knowledge that you've learned from yourself, from just that quiet time that you took, to actually come out of that with some realistic things that you can accomplish within the next 5 years. So Dr. Bobbie, if I have these big picture goals, what are some strategies that you use to help understand what's tangible, somewhere between 6 months and 5 years? Because some goals take a long time and some goals don't take so long. But let's say it's a goal that's kind of big, buying a house.
So, when I look at these goals, I think about and as Dr. Jess was saying, some of these aren't going to be obtainable in a year. They're not going to be obtainable in 5, 10, 20 years. But you got to start somewhere. So, for example, buying a house. Let's say I want to buy a house within the next 5 years, and I'm thinking about it. Realistically, and this will be under the financial aspect, how much do I need for a down payment? Let's say $100,000. I really would like to have $100,000. I don't want to pay PMI. I want to have that 20% down. That's kind of average where my house is, or maybe a little bit above, because we are talking about 5 years out. And so this year, my goal will be save $20,000. Because if I take that $100,000 that I want over 5 years, divided by 5, that would be $20,000 that I need to save this year. So really what we want to do with those big goals is kind of look in each category. And there's 8 categories. Look at each category and what do I want to obtain? What do I want to accomplish this year?
Right. And if you can break it down into what you can accomplish this year, now it's not something that feels so nebulous. It's because it's I'll never be able to save $100,000, and you might not be able to. And that's okay. The cost of houses varies so much. And there's all sorts of different ways to improve your savings. But sometimes it can be something to the effect of, okay, if I really want to be able to save $20,000 in a calendar year, then there's going to be all sorts of steps that you can look at. And that's what we're going to be going through in the next episode, is kind of some more realistic steps that you then do. This episode is focused on how to bring our big dream, 50 big dreams, into at least one in each of these categories that could be realistically achieved between 6 months and 5 years. So financial, an example is buying a home. An example for a career might be looking, either maybe it's a career change, or maybe it's looking to grow within the current field that you're in for some sort of promotion, a raise, things like that. And so that's something that might be a stepping stone. Mm-hmm. It might be that you've got to kind of hit some of these markers before you're really going to get to where you want to go, which is the big dream, you know? Mm-hmm. So, but break that big dream now down into something that is achievable. So for us, in our, world of physical therapy, it's at first it was the dream of getting into grad school. Then it was the dream of passing
and becoming a therapist.
And then it's like you kind of have these goals that you're going for of like, I want to, take on a leadership role in my clinic. And then it's like, oh, I want to get specialty trained. And then so there's constant like growth, constant things that you're going after. And then eventually we both opened our own clinics. And now we're still taking, additional coursework. We're taking coursework on being able to do diagnostic ultrasound. So that way now we can improve what we can offer inside the clinics, which then, helps us better meet our patients' needs. So when it comes to career growth, it's not like within 1 year I set this goal and then stopped. It's like each year we set new goals in order to get us to that longer term goal. And then it's achievable because it doesn't have to be this thing that's so far out of reach that I don't even try.
I think, so Dr. Jess and I both would like to sit for the RMSK, which is a very, very, very tough test. But our goal is 2025 to sit for it. And so that's not a next year goal.
No.
But it is a big goal. And so career-wise, like we're both kind of like making the plan of like, we do have to have 150 scans. So there is stuff that we can set as goals this year that will help us achieve that goal the following year.
Absolutely. Yeah, and but we started talking about this goal back when we went to the conference in 2022, I think.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah, so in 2022, we talked about, okay, this is something we'd like to do. We don't have time in 2022. It's not realistic. Too much was going on. So we said, okay, in 2023, let's revisit this and see if we can put it into the docket. And it made it into the docket towards the end. We started it at the end of 2023, getting the first course in. And then, okay, now we'll look at 2024. What do we need to accomplish in there so that in 2025, we can sit for the exam. And so when it comes to career growth, oftentimes it is a multi-year long process to get the training done, credentialing done, whatever it might be, to be able to kind of like push that career in the direction where you want it to go. Everybody's career paths are different, but like don't shy away from looking at that long range and then just backing that up a little bit so that it's like, this I can do, and it's gonna push me closer to where I want to go. As long as it's closer to where you want to go, it's a win.
Right.
Because then 5 years from now, when you look back, you're going to say, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I got all of that done. I mean, like dry needling certification, big time prepared me for the dry needling or for the diagnostic ultrasound. And so that was a multi-year long process to get that done. And so there's lots of things that I've done in the previous career, years that have pushed me forward. Yeah.
Right.
So you just it's like, the phrase in the clinic is that I'm a bulldozer, because it's like, I'm coming, I'm just moving. I'm not a race car, but we're moving forward no matter what. We're not stopping. We're not turning around. We're moving forward.
I like it.
It's a sustainable pace. And so as long as we can hold it, like I can hold a bulldozer pace. Right? For a long time.
I can't sprint forever.
Right. So then it's achievable, it's doable, I don't feel overwhelmed. And everybody knows this is what we're doing, right? We're not doing yo-yos.
Right, yes. So in the last episode, we talked about recreational, which was one of my favorite. You talked about financial, you talked about career. One that I love is spiritual. And I think because most people think of spiritual as church. And it can be, and it absolutely can be. It is a place I love, but to me, spiritual, one thing I include in that is volunteering. And so I made a goal that I failed miserably at last year. So it's okay to fail at your goals because you're not going to make every goal you make, or you're not going to succeed at every goal you set.
Yeah.
But my goal was to volunteer one time a month, and I learned that it is incredibly hard to find different volunteer opportunities that allow you to volunteer once a month. Most of the time they want a much bigger commitment than that. But so I'm going to kind of revamp that goal and find a different way to do it. But for me, like spiritually, not only going to church, but also volunteering. And it's just something that I enjoy doing and I learn so much from.
Absolutely, yeah. And spiritual could be, just doing, meditation, mindfulness, breath work. It could be participating in yoga. There's a lot of different ways that you can work on spiritual goals. And, I find for me sometimes, like, for whatever reason, like I just love Sunday afternoons going for a walk. And, we'll go out with the boys. And it's just, it's just that pause to just, like, you actually feel the wind blow against you. Mm-hmm. You actually see the clouds in the sky. And we'll point them out like, oh my goodness, what do you think that one looks like? And then, just the awe and wonder of the earth that we live on, the beauty of everything around us, what makes all of this happen,
Yeah.
And, then all of a sudden you'll hear like the scurry of a squirrel going by, or, whatever it might be. And you're just wondering, like, I wonder what their little family is like.
It's like actually being present, living in the moment.
Moment.
We always talk about that, but we rarely do it.
It's a
practice too.
It is a practice, and I like to practice it as a family, and that's something that I value. And that's like our Saturday mornings are a big, we're really big at like getting outside, getting in the garden, like the dew on the plants, and the morning light coming in, the shadows that are cast by the morning light, and just all of that grounds you to your space and that presence in your space. So that spiritual, it can be so many different things, is the real point of all of this. It doesn't have to be an institution. It can be mindfulness, it can be volunteering, it can be so many different things. Just the whole point though is to say, what's a sustainable goal that I could make for this year? Mm-hmm. And then kind of write that goal down, that as that bigger goal, not like one time I want to go for a walk and look at the clouds. I mean, okay, but like really, what do you want out of that spiritual being of you?
Yeah, so I think health isn't typically an easy one if we're looking at categories. But I think it's important to mention it's not just like a number. So maybe you want to look at lowering your blood pressure, or wanting to be able to walk for 30 minutes, looking at, instead of just a pure number per se, I want to weigh this much or I want to lose this much. Like, how can we kind of rework it? Because a lot of us do that, and let's try something different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like health could be so many different things. It could be mental health. It could be physical health. It could be something that's movement based. I want to be able to get on and off of the floor, to be able to play with my grandkids. It might be I want to be able to better manage a chronic condition that I have. It might be I want to prevent a chronic condition that my family presents with. There's a lot of different ways of looking at health to be proactive versus reactive.
Nutrition, just like maybe you're cooking at home more versus eating out, things like that.
And some goals interplay. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're looking at health, and your health goal could help your financial goal.
Sure.
So it could be that and your recreation goal, right? So let's say you start gardening because you grow stuff from seed and you don't need to do expensive garden beds or anything like that. And then you start learning how to cook whole foods and you're using less pre-processed things. And that's a great way to reduce blood pressure and reduce weight and reduce cholesterol and improve your mental health because you overall have less toxins and just overall stuff that's harder for our body to process. So some goals really do start to hit like a lot of different categories, and then we're reducing how much money we're spending by eating out, which helps us save for that down payment for the house.
I was gonna say a lot of times it's it's a lifestyle. It's not, but so we've gone over recreational, spiritual health, financial career. So we have the last ones are personal growth and then family and relationship. And family and relationship, you can kind of put together one. We have separated because relationship could be with friends, social, things like that. Whereas family is truly just your family. So just how is like personal growth different than career? Because I think a lot of times those two get combined into one and they're really not.
No, they're not. So personal growth is you as an individual versus career growth is you in that role of your career.
Mm-hmm.
And think about like family and relationships. That's you in that role as, for me, sister, daughter, mom, wife,
Mm-hmm.
So those are different roles that I play, and I have different, just different needs and wants and things like that, right? But my personal growth is just me. And like, what do I want out of life, out of my day, out of my week, out of my hour, out of my minute?
Yeah.
Right? So like, how am I going to grow as an individual in order to be able to get to where I want to go? And
I think they're intertwined. Like there's
absolutely.
a lot of carryover with all these goals. Yeah. There's a lot of carryover, but it is different.
Yeah. So it might be something where I say, you know what, I've noticed that I've heard this feedback from multiple different areas of my life that like they tell me I'm impatient, or they tell me this, or they tell me that. But I'm like hearing it from a lot of different areas. So I might need to think, maybe I need to work on my communication or my patience or how I reframe things, or who knows, right? So maybe my personal growth is to really focus on my communication and listening and really saying, I hear what you're saying and here's how I'm going to respond to that. So who knows, whatever that personal growth might be. Communication is just a very common one. Other people, personal growth might be being able to do self-care because they don't at all. And self-care might be something that really struggles, and everybody else in the world comes first and they never do. And so for their personal growth might say, I really need to put me first in certain scenarios that are like there's going to be certain times where like safety comes first, but like in the day, how can I make sure that I'm making sure my needs are met? And that might be a personal growth goal.
Learning to say no is another good one, or any type of addiction. Those are all, I think, great for personal growth. And you can do it through podcasts. You can listen to podcasts, reading books. You can do it through listening to YouTube. You can do it through getting professional help that's out there. It's endless, the ways to get that. But you got to kind of also realize, like, hey, I've had a lot of people tell me this, or do a lot of self-reflection to like, and it's hard. It's very hard to do self-reflection. It's very hard to hear people tell you you're impatient, or you're judgmental, or you're this, or you're that, because guess what? None of us want to be that.
No. I will say, I do challenge myself when I've heard it essentially more than once from like very different sources, and I'm like, well, I'm the common denominator. So I'm not saying believe what everybody tells you.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, sometimes if it is coming up, take that moment to say, might they be onto something? And if they are, then I might need to work on me, which is okay, right? We would want somebody else to work on them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And then our very last one is family and relationships. And relationships and families, you've heard us talk about the Blue Zone. We're really excited. We love the research that's being done on it. And this is really important. And relationship is community too. And it is really important for stress relief, to go out with friends, to do stuff with people that you trust and you love and that care about you, and to be there. And not just once a week type thing. It's a day after day. Like, oh my gosh, I was reading the book, and I don't remember the exact statistic, but it was saying an insane percentage of people do not have 3 people they could call or reach out to if something went wrong. And to me, that's just crazy. I got the 3 right off the top of my hand, and I got more than that. I'm so blessed to have some really good friends. But to think about like being stuck in a situation where I need help and not having anyone to call, not having And making friends as an adult is hard. it is very, very hard. But it is super important to our health, to our well-being, and definitely an area that we need to set goals and work on. And especially I think it's a little different when you're kids and in the retirement age. I feel like they do a lot better job of getting together with friends than we do in this crazy area of, I get the kids off, I go to work, I do this, I get home, I gotta cook, I got laundry, I got and the next thing you know, 2 weeks has gone by and you've not seen one friend.
Right. Yeah. And that's just, it is what it is. There's going to be some goals that are harder to achieve and some that are easier. And where you are in life, the different phases of life, all of it makes an impact. However, it is well documented and researched that the more connected you are, the better your mental health, the better your physical health, and all of that is going to keep your stress hormones lower, which keeps your organs functioning at a better level. Mm-hmm. It's going to decrease your financial stress, because if you can have somebody to call on, you're not going to have that big, hotel stay bill. If something happens, you can, crash with a friend for a little while. And you would do the same for them. So living in this world of having these interwoven connections and support systems is truly how it's meant to be in societies. And so finding ways to set goals to make new friends and to get out there and meet people, or repair relationships that might be, have sustained some sort of damage, all are different ways of making goals. And so the point of this episode, like I said, was to break down those big 50 dreams into goals that could be achieved in each of these.
Camera fail. Yeah. Oh no. There we go.
I think that happened out of the Anyway. Okay.
So our goal.
Yeah. So the point of this episode was to break down those big 50 dreams into realistic goals that could be achieved between 6 months to 5 years. So writing those down in each of these categories is going to help you for the next step of actually creating some sustainable plans for making that happen. And that's what we're going to be covering in the next episode. So don't forget, follow us on social media. We also have some PDFs that are going to be helpful for just guiding you in this process. We've got 30-day challenges and some just organizational things to just make it a little bit easier, so you're not just operating on blank paper. You can operate on blank paper, but sometimes getting a little bit organized and some templates can be helpful. So visit our website, www.2-gals.com, and you'll be able to get the downloadable link for those.
And before you go, when we say, those 50 goals, you don't have to take all those 50 goals and break it down.
One.
Pick one per category.
One per category.
Recreational, spiritual, health, personal growth, family, relationships, financial, and career. And pick one, and then we'll go from there.
Perfect. All right, see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the episode today. If you would like to learn more about how Two Gals can support you, then join our Two Gals Insiders membership, which can be found at www.2-gals.com. Also, don't forget, follow us on social media. We're on Facebook as well as Instagram. Okay, everybody. Bye. Enjoy your week.